Right now, looking at the global news, you see the politics, you see the military strikes, you see the headlines about the Middle East. But underneath all of that noise, an invisible siege is taking place. It is not being fought with missiles. It is being fought with spreadsheets, insurance premiums, and cargo ships. When the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz effectively became no-go zones in early 2026, the world focused on the price of oil. But oil is just the symptom. The actual disease is a total rewiring of the global supply chain. Consider this. 20% of all seaborne oil on Earth passes through the Strait of Hormuz. 30% of all container traffic between Asia and Europe passes through the Red Sea. In a matter of days, the arteries of global capitalism were pinched shut. But in economics, chaos is never just chaos. Chaos is simply a transfer of wealth. And while the media warned of a global recession, a very specific, quiet group of industries began making billions of dollars practically overnight. Welcome to Macro Context. Today, we are opening the ledger on the 2026 shipping crisis to see who actually gets rich when the world's oceans become a war zone. To understand how wealth is moving right now, you have to look past the companies that own the ships and look at the companies that insure the ships. When a shipping conglomerate wants to move a $100 million oil tanker through the Middle East, they have to buy something called marine war risk insurance. Under normal, peaceful conditions, that premium sits around 0.2% of the ship's value. For a standard tanker, that is a $200,000 fee just to make the trip. It's a rounding error for a massive oil company. But in March 2026, as geopolitical tensions boiled over, the global insurance syndicates, primarily based out of London, woke up and looked at the map. They realized they held the keys to global trade, so they changed the math. Overnight, premiums quadrupled to 1%. That same ship, making the exact same journey, now costs $1 million to insure. Multiply that by the thousands of ships attempting to transit these waters, and you see a massive invisible wealth transfer from global manufacturers and energy producers straight into the pockets of risk underwriters. But for most shipping companies, a $1 million insurance fee isn't just expensive, it's uninsurable. So, they did the only thing they could do. They turned around. They began taking the long way home, routing around the southern tip of Africa, the Cape of Good Hope. This detour bypasses the violence, and it saves carriers roughly $500,000 in Suez Canal toll fees. But it adds up to 3,500 nautical miles to the journey, an extra 14 days on the water. And this is where the global economy starts to fracture. Because modern businesses do not operate on inventory, they operate on efficiency. Right now, as vessels are being forced to sail an extra 14 days around Africa, the immediate assumption is that shipping companies are the ones bleeding money. After all, they are burning up to $1.8 million in extra fuel per round trip and paying their crews for more days at sea. But that assumption is wrong. The shipping conglomerates aren't absorbing the cost of this crisis. They are simply passing it on. Back in 2024, as traffic through the Suez Canal collapsed by nearly 75%, major carriers like Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd responded by instituting massive emergency and peak season surcharges. The problem wasn't simply that shipping became more expensive. The problem was that capital was becoming completely trapped. To understand why this is causing a near panic in European manufacturing right now, you have to look past the ships and look at the cash conversion cycle. Let's take a mid-sized European chemical importer. They are currently purchasing €2 million worth of industrial chemicals from Asia. Under normal conditions, that voyage takes 30 days. The product arrives, it gets sold to a manufacturer, and the cash returns to the business. But when that voyage suddenly takes 44 days, the math breaks. For an extra 2 weeks, that company cannot generate revenue from that inventory. But their expenses don't stop. They still have to service their customers. They still have to pay their suppliers. They still have to make payroll. The goods technically exist, but economically, that €2 million is disappearing into the ocean. This is the working capital trap, and this isn't just a problem for small businesses. During 2024, Brenntag, the German chemical distribution giant, reported that their transit times blew out by 2 to 3 weeks, while their freight costs more than doubled. Brenntag sits dead in the center of the European industrial supply chain. When they got squeezed, the entire continent felt it. Which brings us to the Bullwhip Effect. The bullwhip effect is a phenomenon where a small disruption at one end of a supply chain creates a massive, chaotic distortion at the other end. Imagine a European distributor who usually receives 100 containers a month. Suddenly, their shipments are delayed by 2 weeks. Panic sets in. They don't know when the next shipment will arrive, so they are over-ordering. They are demanding 120 containers to build a buffer. The Asian manufacturers see this artificial spike in demand and are ordering extra raw materials. A 2-week delay at sea is artificially inflating demand across the entire globe, creating massive bottlenecks. And eventually, the system simply snaps. This isn't theoretical, it literally stopped assembly lines. In early 2024, major automakers, including Tesla at its German Gigafactory, were forced to halt almost all production, not because of a strike, not because of a lack of demand, but because the components required to build the products were stuck on a ship somewhere off the coast of Africa. Shipping delays create inventory delays. Inventory delays create production delays, and production delays mean zero revenue. The real victims of the Red Sea crisis are not the shipping firms. It is the manufacturers, the importers, and the mid-sized businesses with limited cash reserves. The true cost of this conflict is not being measured in missiles or naval deployments. It is being measured in time. Every additional day at sea is tying up millions of dollars in inventory. Every delayed shipment is weakening cash flow. And across Europe, thousands of businesses are discovering the same uncomfortable truth. In a global economy built on speed, a 2-week delay is a financial heart attack. But while the oceans are freezing global capital, a different part of the world is quietly unfreezing it. Because when water fails, capital finds land. While the West and the Middle East have been consumed by the conflicts securing the oceans, the real winners of this crisis have been quietly building an iron bridge straight through the heart of Central Asia. Welcome to the Trans-Caspian international transport route, but global logistics experts know it by a much simpler name, the Middle Corridor. The Middle Corridor is a logistics stream. It bypasses the sanctioned Russian railways to the north, and it completely avoids the war-torn oceans to the south. Right now, freight moving along this corridor can reach European destinations 15 days faster than a cargo ship taking the detour around Africa. But there was a problem. The Middle Corridor wasn't built for the sheer volume of global panic. The primary bottleneck wasn't the sea, it was the city of Almaty, Kazakhstan's largest urban center. Imagine trying to push a garden hose's worth of water through a coffee straw. That was Almaty. Every major freight train from China had to squeeze through this dense, congested urban center, causing massive delays. But the shipping crisis changed the math. Suddenly, the money to fix this wasn't just available, it was desperate. In early 2026, a massive $300 million financing package, backed by the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the World Bank's IFC, was locked in for Kazakhstan's state rail operator. The goal was a 130-kilometer electrified railway bypass. They are literally building a dedicated high-speed freight highway around the city. This single piece of infrastructure cuts delivery times by up to 24 hours and reduces rail congestion by 40%. For a shipper holding millions in inventory, 24 hours isn't just time, it is pure working capital, and they aren't stopping at Almaty. Kazakhstan is rolling out a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure program through 2030, building hundreds of kilometers of new track and expanding their Caspian seaports. They recognized a fundamental shift in how the world works. The era of efficiency-first globalization is dead. For the last 30 years, the global economy was built on the assumption that the oceans would always be safe and shipping would always be cheap. We built supply chains that required everything to go perfectly. But we are now entering the era of resilience-first globalization. The companies, the investors, and the countries that own the alternative routes are the ones who hold the leverage. The Middle East might control the oil, but right now, Central Asia controls the clock. If you want to understand the invisible systems running the world, hit subscribe right now. Let me know in the comments, which global industry should we audit next? I'll see you in the next briefing.